So the class that I taught this semester, one of the classes I taught is called Advanced Online Media. It's for graduate students that have already taken a basic web design class. And one of the projects that we were assigned this semester was, because I applied for this grant through AEJMC and the Knight Foundation, to work with one of the Knight News Challenge winners to develop something in the classroom. They basically just asked us, pick one to work with. And I've been really interested in data visualization, so I went through all the potential Knight News Challenge winners that we could have selected. And I chose this one called VIDI, V-I-D-I. The Jefferson Institute is a group out of DC. They're sort of a think tank about a lot of different policy issues, but they also were making these Drupal modules that you could use to do data visualization. And at the same time, I wanted to kind of explore like all the tools out there. And JC Yang, who's taking the pictures over here, she also is on the grant and assisted with that. Thinking about what we could do with data where we would have a lot of access to data was this status that Texas State had achieved recently as Hispanic serving institution, which means we have 25% or more of our student population Hispanic students. And we wanted to learn more about that. We knew there'd be lots of data around the idea of it being a Hispanic serving institution. We wanted to kind of understand the journey that the institution had been on to get to that, and the culture around the university becoming a Hispanic serving institution. So this is the class website, and on the class site I have basically been blogging about all the different things that we've been doing with the grant. We had 3 different guest speakers. We had Aaron Pilhofer from the New York Times, which maybe some of you have met during South by Southwest, or you know of him. And his group is doing amazing things, and he kind of started them from scratch. And they're definitely the vanguard, I think, in terms of data journalism. So he's been very gracious to be a friend of our institution and visit with us a few times. I have videos and photos and blog posts about all the guests we had, because I wanted to make sure that as we were using the grant, we were making things that people could use, and we were sharing those things. We also had a visit from Thomas Levine from ScraperWiki, and they're a group out of the UK. They have tools online that actually allow you to more easily scrape websites. So he did a workshop with us after South by Southwest. He was in town again. There's video of that online. And then Dante Cini works for Patchwork Nation, which is affiliated with the Jefferson Institute. So he was the contact that the Jefferson Institute sent to us. Patchwork Nation is this really neat website, if you're not familiar with it, that looks at community demographics, political affiliations. And if you think about how Austin's not like the rest of Texas, politically, if you start thinking about like, well, who are we more like? And so they define these community types based on certain different variables of demographics that happen in those communities, so that instead of saying Texas is Texas, or the women demographic is the women demographic, he had all these different community types that they were organizing around political issues. So all those were really interesting speakers that we had this semester. Our main goal, however, was to create a website, and you can see all the different technologies we've been using this semester. And this particular project we did after we did our South by Southwest project, so it was really the second part of the semester. It was a very short time frame, and I'm sure some of these guys will have some insights onto maybe how we can do this better, or how we should do it differently in the future. But in the course of the semester, we tried to get as many advanced features, advanced technologies that the students would need to be able to understand how to work with data, how to do programming, and in some cases it's just a very high-level one-day exercise that they would do in jQuery, or that they would do in PHP, or that they would do in Ruby on Rails. But at least to be able to say, well, I did that, and kind of demystify it for them, to make them know that it's not magic, or it's not beyond their abilities to be able to do it, and to have gone through an exercise. This is a class that evolves every time I teach it. Lewis has taken it, John has taken it, so we have some alumni of the class, and it's very different every time I teach it in terms of the technologies. The students make a WordPress blog on their own installation at the beginning. The South by Southwest site is a WordPress blog. We do HTML5 and CSS3, jQuery, Fusion tables, and then the students are really able to do whatever they want, whatever they can find. We had one student who went to a panel at South by Southwest, and they talked about many eyes, and then she did her own many eyes visualizations from that. So we had a lot of people doing a lot of different things, a little bit chaotic at times in terms of the group and what they were able to accomplish, and how I was able to assist them when there's so many different things going on. There are 14 people in the class. Here are 4 of the students that made it here tonight, because you know the semester's over. They didn't have to come to this. They've already been graded. So it's really cool that they're able to join us. This is Sarah Peralta, and she was the editor, the overall editor of the site. And Shannon Delaney, and you're on the demographic beat. I'll talk about the beats in a second. And Ashley Hubler was in the career beat, right? And then Joe Vasquez was in the student life beat. So I'll let these guys talk in a second, but I'll just kind of show you what we're able to do. Let me talk a little bit more about BD. So, like I said, these are they're Drupal modules, and so my thought was, oh, well, we'll use these Drupal modules, and I'll learn Drupal. I'd never used Drupal before January, and so I'll learn it and I'll teach it. Have any of you used Drupal? Not many of you, okay. So it's a new thing to you as well. It's not like WordPress. There's a lot more flexibility and customization of Drupal that you can do, which makes it sometimes a little bit more difficult. More steps are involved with doing something that you take for granted in WordPress. But it's very, very powerful. So there are different things that you can do with it. So the Jefferson Institute created all these different visualization tools, but you can also go on their website and use them here on their site. So you can pick a chart type, you can play with some existing data, or you can upload your own CSV file and work with the different types of data. So I encourage the students to play around with the different chart types and to think about what was going to work with the kinds of data that they were working with. I should add that during the semester too, we had a visit from Joe Meyer, who was from the Institutional Research Department at Texas State. So he helped us understand what some of the public data was available around the Hispanic Serving Institution status. And on the Texas State website, there was a series of pivot tables that we could go in and search and filter and sort the information about the student demographics over time in a variety of different ways. And so that was a lot of what the students looked at as they were working on this project. So over the course of the summer, I do plan to work more with the Drupal modules, like maybe installing some of the modules and seeing how we can maybe do something more flexible with them. But for the purpose of this project, and with the time frame that we had, it didn't seem like we needed to do anything other than to use this platform here. It worked out really, really well. We had one account and everybody loaded their files up to it. And then we were able to embed those into our site that we did end up making in Drupal. We didn't necessarily have to, but we chose to use Drupal for that.
Cindy, I saw you nodding your head when the teaching advanced Excel was mentioned.
Okay, so that's, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and address that now. I would say one of the things that I found throughout the semester was that you have to get the data and you have to work with it in Excel to create the CSV that we use to put into this platform. It wasn't like you just took the pivot table, the giant pivot table, pressed a button, and magically you got a chart, right? I mean, you guys all had to use Excel. And I will say that I was surprised that I had a range of Excel skills in the class. These students are awesome. Had excellent Excel skills, but the other students, all the 10 that are not here, were terrible. No.
It's recorded.
But there's a range. I just assume that everything's in Microsoft Office and people are familiar and they can do things like sum a column or they know how to make a percentage or something like that. And so there were some people I had to work with and other people who were fine doing something like that. So teaching it again, I will spend a week at least on the basics of using Excel. I think that would be very, very helpful in the class and not take that for granted any longer. Because it is the basis for fusion tables. It is the basis for any of these tools. You have to be able to work with the data, get it into the totals, the categories. All that work is happening somewhere. And that also helps you with the cleaning of the data because then you can work with things and slice them and dice them in different ways. And well, that's weird, that's an outlier. Why is that like that? And it allows you to ask questions. This is what the site turned out to be. This sort of magically came together during the last week of the semester, right, guys? They were, what we started out after South by Southwest was we started brainstorming the beats that the students would have to tackle this project because we knew it would be a big idea. It's a big concept to kind of understand. Sure, we could have just done one chart that had 25%, and here's how long it took us to get to here, but we really wanted to talk about the culture and use multimedia. And so as a team, we brainstormed the ideas for the beats. We ultimately settled on 4 different beats, and some of the ones that I mentioned that each of them were on. The actual beats ended up being a little bit broader, so what you see here, the history and the culture were kind of in the same beat, but I separated those out once we got on the site. The demographics beat, which was just like university demographics primarily. The student life beat, just like, you know, different ways to look at student life and events and activities on campus. And then the career beat, because we wanted to find out what Hispanic students do after they graduate, what kinds of opportunities are available for them, and how are they using those opportunities, and, you know, kind of understand life after college. We also brainstormed the title of the site. It took us a few weeks to get to that. There was a couple of weeks we were just, you know, we couldn't think at all. It's like, what should we name this site? And so eventually we brainstormed some things, and then I put a little poll out on Trax, which is our Texas State content management system, and we agreed on the Texas State of Change idea. And Kiana Fitzgerald, who was supposed to be here tonight, but she was unable to make it, was basically our lead developer. So in addition to the 4 beats, we had a lead developer and Sarah as the editor. So she came up with this idea for the graphic for this. And then we just pulled things together, and I'll just show you what some of the different sections look like. So under history, and you know, maybe people don't know about this, but the Higher Education Act was signed by LBJ at Texas State. And so that's the roots of the Hispanic Serving Institution come from the Higher Education Act. And so that's, you know, very special to us to know that it was a prominent alumni of LBJ who signed that act, and he did it on the Texas State campus. So that was really important to us to kind of talk about the history of it. So Susan Raybuck was able to get access to these photos from the university that we could use, and you see him signing there, and we have a plaque on campus about it. The main story here was it was raining. They were supposed to do it outside, and a big downpour came, so they had to move it inside. And so that's what that is here when he was doing his speech about it. And then she also did a little piece on student enrollment and did some stories, because, you know, the story is very important to talk about how things changed between 1960, when LBJ signed the act, and now. There were really no Hispanic students, or I won't say no, the university did not calculate that information. They didn't keep up with that information. And so just in general, she was able to talk about what the situation is like now. And then in Texas in general, what the growth of the Hispanic and non-Hispanic populations have been from 1970 to 2010. Then the next section under demographics, and a lot of different stories that went around demographics. And I have to be honest, I stole this from the Texas Tribune last week. I told Ryan, I'm stealing your work. But I did add a little bit to it. I added the percentages to it, and we're gonna, by seeing this, I saw that it was this highcharts.com, and we're gonna do some more stuff with highcharts and some other information. But you might have seen on the Texas Tribune last week where they had the 4-year graduation rates, but they also had a lot of other data underneath that. So I pulled out the Hispanic information, Hispanic enrollment and Hispanic degrees awarded, and then I calculated the percentages of totals. So that you can click on any one of these. HighCharts is super cool. I mean, and it's all jQuery based, so it's not Flash, very cool. And you can pick which school, like if I wanted to add a school to it. So we are probably going to do some things with this over the summer with some Texas State specific data, like maybe having the counties in here and where the students come from in each county to see what the enrollment of Hispanic students and where they particularly come from. But this was sort of a first crack at it when I saw what the Texas Tribune was doing. I guess that HighCharts just started at the end of last year. I think it's like November 2011 or something.
It's older than that. It's been around longer than that.
How long have you been using it?
We started, it was probably end of last year, was when we had gave it a shot.
I think it just started then, because I think I remember seeing something about the end of last year, because it was like, why didn't I know about this before? It could have been in development, like a beta, and then they said it was out. HighCharts, H-I-G-H, charts.com.
It is important to know that in our case, because we're a nonprofit, we can use it for free, but they do expect you to buy.
And we are a school.
So you also
I am not.
So
Yes.
you're free. I don't know how expensive.
So I mean,
It's not cheap.
All right.
Not cheap enough for me to expense.
All right. That's too bad. That's because it's really cool, like the chart. And there's all different kinds of chart styles. I like this one, but there's all
That's
different
sweet that
kinds
you
of chart
just,
styles.
I mean, it just changes right like that.
That's
Yeah.
because it's jQuery, and in this case, the data is in the
Yeah.
HTML file.
Oh, the data is in the, okay, yeah.
Okay, so here's one of the BD charts, and you can, they're just like Excel charts. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really impressed by the functionality of what VD was able to offer, and I'm hoping that they're going to develop more things in the future. I think the potential of working with it within Drupal might be there if you're trying to do something where users input something into a form, like a content type in Drupal, and that would change the graphic. That might give it some level of interactivity, but right now the only interactivity is just like it would be like on a Google chart, and that's really what they're using is the Google Charts API. But we use that as much as we possibly could to show the different percentages of change, freshmen, transfer students. Shannon did this story about Hispanic faculty, because if you are trying to attract Hispanic students, you would expect to have Hispanic faculty. And which disciplines were having the most success with numbers of Hispanic faculty and the ones that weren't using it at all. And you can see a whole variety of them here. And let's see, comparison of faculty percent, student percents, and you can see in most cases there's a higher percentage of Hispanic students than faculty in every case that she has on here. So there were just a lot. This was the many eyes one. I'm not sure. On this computer we probably have to go through something to get it to actually interact and work. Some of these tools, you know, they're either Flash based or you have to download a plugin, or like for Google Earth, somebody used that, you have to have the Google Earth plugin. I'm not a fan of any of those kind of things, but I did want students to kind of explore as many different tools as they wanted to.
I put the Google Earth on yours.
On this one? Oh, okay, so we can look at that. I mean, I can try to put this up. Sometimes it takes a second for this to come up now.
Just run this time at the top,
Run this time?
maybe, right?
And I probably have to update the plugin too.
Yeah, that's a brand new install, so.
Okay, we won't worry about that, but I mean, you can, that's, again, this is the reason why, well, maybe it's coming. It does often take it a second. It's Java. See if it's coming. There it is. So you can come over here and you can change what you're looking at in terms of what you want the bubble sizes to be. So here's all the Hispanic, numbers of Hispanic students, and you can see it over here. It's really just kind of a different way to look at it based on the line chart above. And then this one here was the Google Earth one that Ryan had done. Ryan Stewart, one of our students. I'm not pleased with the way you embed Google Earth. When you have Google Earth on your desktop, it looks really cool. It zooms in and you can do these kind of 3D things, but I was not able to get like an embedded plugin on a website to have that same functionality. But he's got it here with the surrounding counties in the area, and these are supposed to, yeah, they have like little pop-ups here that have additional information. This doesn't scroll. So it kind of functions differently, but it has more information under each one of those little flags that you created by county there. Let's do a scroll bar in there. So that's the demographics section. Then we have, and you can see some of them actually have multimedia. They interviewed people, so in addition to doing all the data stuff, they were asked to go out, do interviews, shoot video, take pictures. So under student life, you know, there's more charts that you can take a look at and see what we did. This was a particularly good video on Latino veterans at the university and the support that the university gives to Latino veterans. So a chart accompanying the video. It's a very well done video. And then Joe worked on this piece here, the Spanish language documentary festival that we have, Puntos de Vista. And he took pictures and interviewed people here for the video for that, and did a story about that because that's a very important cultural event at our university. So you can see, you know, we tried to really do broad coverage that encapsulated a broad range of skills that they had received in our program over several semesters. So the local culture, I forgot why that's not working, it was there before. This one is a video about a local cultural center in San Marcos, the Centro Cultural Hispano de San Marcos, and he went out and interviewed the person that's there. And then these little slideshows, like the one that Joe did and the one that's here that Matt did, are jQuery. So we uploaded those separately to the site and then embedded those into each blog post. So that allowed students to use the jQuery skills. And then career, that's the team that Ashley was on, lots of different videos, and looking at the majors and then how those match up to the employment in the area in terms of charts. and really good video here. Actually, Myra was featured in one of these videos, if you go back and want to watch one of these, talking about, because Myra is one of our distinguished graduates from Texas State. And this is Monique Ramos, another one of our distinguished graduates. And we talked to faculty and graduates, students talking about career potential. And then on the observations page, it's really a blog for the students and myself to talk about the things we had learned throughout the course of the semester. I made this little slideshow that kind of shows the students collaborating in the classroom, and so I'll kind of just let this run while the other students are talking. But you can see the chaotic nature with snacks that we often have in the classroom. I was really inspired by the way the students work together, though. You can see little pods of people helping each other out, asking questions. You can see people like sketching things on paper. I thought was really good. It wasn't just people looking at computer screens and being isolated the entire time. So you can get a sense of what the classroom is like when you're working. But I guess I want to start with you guys and let you guys talk a little bit about what you each did and what you felt was important about the project. And Sarah, let's start with you as sort of the editor of the project.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah. I was the editor. It was my first editing role as an editor, and also my first role in data journalism, like doing actual data journalism. So it was a lot of new things at once, and the learning curve was steep, but we worked really well as a team. It was not, just thinking in comparison with the Light of Day project, it was not a traditional newsroom. We were more focusing on one issue and just really delving deep. My role as editor, since I was really my job, I self-appointed myself as content expert. So I went and read the Higher Education Act. It is very long. The renewal. I just worked really hard to make sure I could keep what we were doing in the framework of Hispanic serving institutions. For me, my perspective was that this school is just one case study of a larger national trend, a demographic shift. We're looking, again, Cindy, well, you can put it to the first page. If you look at where Hispanic serving institutions are, they are primarily in the southwest part of the United States, which happen to be where all the Hispanics live. And if you look at the latest census trends, who's going to be living in this country, this is basically a case study in the future of higher education of the United States. And so the kind of theme I was always emphasizing with our team members, and I'm sure they'll echo the same thing, is what, this is just one snapshot, but what is the broader context of this? Yes, we have great support for our Hispanic or Latino veterans here, but in the broader context, what are we doing? What are we not doing? Let's look at both sides. I didn't want this to turn into a promo piece for Texas State, like, look how great we are, we do all sorts of fun stuff. Make sure we had a balanced approach. So just keeping the big picture, and then the other part of that was helping strike the balance when you tell stories with data. It's very, a chart is not a story. And I think we learned that very quickly, that you don't want to have nothing but chart, and you don't want to have nothing but narrative without any context or framework. And so we worked really hard to strike that balance. So I really feel like I had to work hard to pull my weight, because these guys worked so hard. I mean, finding data, working it, massaging it, going out and doing interviews. I really feel like I didn't do anything, because these guys did everything. So also.
I mean, it was a lot of work, and we had a very short time frame to do it in, and you can see that there was a lot of expectations on the students. Just as you were talking, I was thinking about some things that I would do differently. I would spend a little bit more time on chart types and why you use certain chart types for certain types of data, because we would go in and I'd be like, well, maybe that's not the right chart to use for that particular piece of information. Let's try it in a different kind of a chart, and we really needed a little bit of extra time for that editing period, that sort of, editing the content, the text, editing the video, as well as spending a little bit more time with the data pieces.
We basically ran out of time. We were literally working up to the last day to turn it.
What was his time frame?
It was after spring break for the rest of the semester.
So how many weeks?
6 weeks, 8 weeks, about 7 weeks.
That's
Yeah.
7 weeks,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, to do full on.
To start from
That's
scratch.
impressive.
The only thing we hadn't done is we had a couple of our guest speakers that attended beforehand, but we didn't start working on the project until after South by Southwest, because they did this extensive reporting project on covering South by Southwest for the first part of the semester. So it's a very aggressive class, and I'm sure they felt very exhausted at the end of the semester, but good, results to show.
Is this where we ask you to leave the room so we can get the real?
That's
story?
right. Undergrads or grad students?
Grad students.
Grad students.
One undergrad was allowed in the class this semester, but it's a grad class.
I see.
Yeah. Shannon, you want to talk about what you did?
I was on the demographics team, and basically coming into the class, like Sarah, I had no idea about, how to do data journalism whatsoever. So this class really opened my eyes through the guest speakers and what we learned, starting with Aaron Philhoffer, who was awesome, showing, what they're doing with data journalism there at the New York Times. So it was kind of inspiring to see. So part of the demographics team, I wasn't necessarily happy that I got demographics because I like to write and kind of tell stories. And so I thought, well, demographics is kind of the boring beat.
But really the most important beat.
But it is the most important, yes. So I was trying to think of ways to obviously incorporate the data and tell it visually, but also make the stories interesting by getting quotes from faculty and staff. So that's what I set out to do. And I got a contact from Joe, and that kind of set the ball rolling. I contacted that person. Everyone at Texas State who I contacted was so willing to help. They wanted to be interviewed. They thought this is an amazing project and opportunity. So they gave me names, and it just sort of happened that way to where I was able to interview a number of faculty and staff and get even more data that I didn't know existed. So that was really cool. And the first story was basically the overall growth of enrollment over 10 years. And I kind of looked at the census data as well as looking at trends in Texas as well as the United States as far as the changing demographics and the shift in demographics. But then with my team, we were kind of brainstorming, well, let's look at faculty and kind of compare faculty with the students. So what departments have the highest percentage of Hispanic enrollment, and what is the faculty that are teaching students? I mean, what's the percentage of Hispanic faculty in those departments? So Joe Meyer, I contacted him from Institutional Research, and he sent me this great chart that had all this information about the broken down by departments, like what was the percentage of the Hispanic faculty in each department. So I kind of took it like that, the comparison of faculty and students, to see where are the highest discrepancies. And I really thought the health professions was a major area because there's a new school of nursing at Texas State, and it's in the Round Rock campus, but it's really a profession that's continuing to expand. And the amount of Hispanic students in that health profession is high compared to the other departments, but if you see, the faculty is very low. So I think there was only 3 Hispanic faculty in the health professions, the entire health professions school.
So I think we unearthed a lot of opportunities by looking at the data in this way that no one else had really looked at before.
So that'd be really interesting to just do a story on that alone.
And Cindy, you said that it was a 25% plateau that it reached this week? And so it's fairly even across. It's not like there's a whole lot of departments that really are low. I mean, there's some differences, but almost all of them hit that bar.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are like business administration looked a little less there,
Yeah,
but that's
still
the
about
only
20.
one. Yeah, I think a lot has to happen to reach that level. It has to be a full university effort to get to that percentage. And it's a federal designation, I should have added, and that allows us to be eligible for grant money, so that's why it's so important. Okay, Ashley, talk about the career beat that you worked on, and your group worked together rather well.
Yes. Yes, we've known each other for a while, so I think that worked out too. Yeah, we did the career, and I think it's funny because Shannon said her beat was boring, but I know we did like a coin toss to see who got career because it sounded really cool. I thought we'd go a lot of places with it. Turns out we kind of wanted the demographics because there's a lot of data there.
Yeah, they had to pull things
Yeah, we
together
kinda
from
had
different
to-
sources. Yeah.
Follow the data.
So we thought, let's look at employment rates, let's look at where Hispanics are employed. But Sarah reminded us that we kind of had to bring it back to Texas State and see how that related. So what we did is we took the majors at Texas State and then also looked at Austin and Texas employment sectors. So we know some trends. Mass comm is, the School of Mass Comm was one of the top 10 majors, so that was kind of interesting since we were mass comm students. So I think the main focus of our story was to see how Texas State prepared Hispanic students for a career life. So a lot of our interviews, we interviewed Myra and asked, about what were some of the, was it faculty or was it internships, or what was it that led them into those professions?
Hardest thing was to get Quigley to quit, and
They're already working.
She was already working.
That's why it was so easy.
She didn't push him out.
We aren't talking about that.
So yeah, I think that's basically ours. We did also talk about some of the challenges that Hispanics may face in the workplace, and one of our faculty, she's part of the faculty and she's also a graduate student, Olga. She talked about, she was interviewing and she said that she was from Puerto Rico, and the interviewer was like, oh, well, that's where my maid is from, and then she dismissed the interview. So I thought that was just, I just didn't know that happened.
Well, and she had said, I watched that interview, obviously, and she had said, as soon as she heard her accent, oh, where are you from?
Mhm.
And then that's the line of the conversation, and then she ended it pretty quickly. She didn't get that position.
Right. Right, so that was interesting to me to hear about some of the challenges.
Okay, Joe had the student life beat.
Yes.
Talk about what you all did.
So like Ashley was saying, we all were really excited at the beginning and trying to find stuff, but as you can see, student life doesn't really have much of data. So we had to search for that data, and my group and I started to look at the multicultural Greek affairs program that we have at Texas State, as well as a number of Hispanic events that we have there. But one of the, I guess not bad things, but they don't keep track of the events that we have at Texas State. And there's just so many departments around the whole university that they sort of promote their own events, and we can't access all that information. So it was a little bit difficult, but I got hold of an associate academic of a person that I got in contact with, and she helped me a lot and told me that these events are tailored for Hispanics, students and other students who want to know more about the culture, and are tailored so that they can know a little bit more, and they don't necessarily just promote a lot of Hispanic events just because we're now a Hispanic serving institution, but just because it's something that they're attracted to, and that's something that I learned, and that was really interesting to me, actually.
I think a lot of this is that it's not just the data, there has to be a story behind it,
Right.
and there's a lot of things that had to help explain or tie two different data sets
Yeah.
together, right? And then you were focusing on the Punta de Vista. Want to talk a little bit about that?
I focused on it's very dear to me because I was their TA as well, so I co-coordinated this event. And it's a really good way to sort of promote this, because we, at the School of Journalism, we don't really have a lot of Hispanic tailored events, but this is one of them, and it's just a great way to explore the Hispanic culture and their views, their worldviews of how the Hispanics community deals with social problems, social issues around the globe. And there's a lot of people that came to this event from all over Latin America and Spain, and they showcased their work. It was very interesting to me.
So we have a Center for Latino Media and Markets out of our department that Federico Severve heads up. Some of you may know Federico. And so, we're really proud of that emphasis that we have in our department that kind of helps the university achieve the Hispanic Serving Institution status, and focus on the culture and research around that area, focusing on media and markets and careers and things like that. So questions for me or the students?
So did this, similarly like our previous session, has this generated more interest and understanding of the powers that be, of, like, as you're saying, here's an opportunity to start collecting and managing data that we haven't thought of before?
Well, we just launched this soft on Thursday, and officially right now. So it hasn't had a lot of attention yet. But I think in their data gathering, I think all of you found that people were interested in how we were going to use the data and what kind of results we were coming out of with it. So I'm hoping the semester's over. I mean, this is a sad thing. Everybody's gone, and you're trying to get it out there and you get people to look at it. So we're going to continue working on it over the summer. Or at least I am, and one other person. Some of these guys might still stay involved. And try to add some additional features, and maybe get it associated with our student newspaper. But we hope so.
Excuse me. Does the school have like a core effort on improving its data?
And the data was pretty good that we got that was on the university's website because it was organized in pivot tables. There was already a lot of filtering and aggregation that we could look at, and there was a slew of data. I think our biggest problem was there was so much data. The way we separated out the beats, though, I think some people had challenges when they realized that maybe the student event stuff wasn't as clean as we would have liked. But the general demographic, university demographic stuff was really good. They do have the institutional research group is a group focused on that kind of information.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a selfish question, but how do you assess such a thing? How do you grade how they do on this project?
Okay, that's a good question.
Now this is where you guys leave.
Throughout the semester with both the South by project and this project, I emphasize I need you to work autonomously, not expect me to tell you everything, particularly this project since it was the first time we've done it. I didn't have all the answers. It's a scary place to be as an instructor and as a student too, I'm assuming. And I just wanted them to work hard and exceed expectations, and so I tried to give them expectations in terms of setting up the beats and giving them access to all these different resources and the different guest speakers that we had throughout the semester. But I didn't want to say you need to do 3 posts, you need to have 2 videos, you need to have 1 chart, because then that ruins any sort of creativity. That makes it more difficult for them to figure out what I want, but I didn't know what I wanted. I just wanted an awesome project that was going to be something that we could show the world, because unlike other projects, you turn it in to the teacher and it's just between you and that person, and you make a C and who cares, right? If you make a C post, it's out there. Either I have to fix it or I have to take it off, or it just makes us look bad. And so this idea of having these public websites as class projects adds this higher level of expectation, higher level of quality that we have to have out there, because it reflects on us, it reflects on the university, it reflects on individuals so that they can say I worked on this. So it's very, very hard. I have the students fill out an evaluation after each project, the South by project and this project. I had them talk about what they specifically did in terms of, tell me how many posts you did, how many data visualizations you did. Tell me how you exceeded expectations. Tell me how your group worked together, if there was a group, and this second part there was. I had them kind of rate their groups. And, trends come out when you look at it that way, and so some people maybe didn't pull their weight as much, and I didn't want to be the judge of that. I wanted the teams to be able to be the judge of that. So it's difficult all the way around to assess these kinds of things, but you have to try to put it in an environment like a professional environment. Like how would your boss be assessing something like this, and get them comfortable with that. I may not have been 100% successful with getting them all comfortable with that. I don't know, do you guys want to talk about the evaluation process or how that made you feel to have to work on a project like this? Your grades are already in, so I can't change them. And these all did very well, so.
Yeah. I mean, was there a lot of anxiety not knowing exactly what I need to get an A? Because I find that with students a lot of time. It's like, what do I need to do? Give me that 3 posts and 2 videos or whatever. And I like what you're trying to do and saying just do something great. But did it bother the students?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was very accurate as to how it's going to be later. I mean, I know that my boss isn't going to say, you need to do this to make me happy. Like, you're just going to have to do what you would think would make someone satisfied with your work. So I think it was very realistic to what it's going to be like after.
I like the evaluations so you can be honest and your group members aren't going to find out, and that you actually have some, you can kind of vent your frustrations maybe, and you actually have some control over the situation more so. Like, I like that aspect where it's not just, here's what you do 3 posts and then this is your grade. Well, how do we compare those 3 posts with another student's 3 posts, if that makes sense? So if you went
it's good that there's a way that you can actually write, type that out. Like, here's exactly what happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the evaluation process really just let people who are very passionate about the project shine. I mean, I would agree with Ashley. I work full time, and you aren't graded on the minimum. You are in your real job. You are graded on how you succeed and exceed expectations. So I really liked it.
They're all saying this.
Well,
Because you're here.
I think that's the difference between a graduate class and an undergraduate class.
This is a
It's a
graduate
big difference,
class, and
yeah.
it's an advanced graduate class. So the class that they all were in before this one, the regular online media design class, there were more, here's the rubric, here's what I'm expecting on every website that you do. And so I was pretty clear throughout the semester, this class is not like the last class. We're doing experimental things, we're living on the edge. Join me. And they all did. So I think you had, would you ever kind of?
I was just going to weigh in on, SMU, our program only teaches undergraduates, and this is something I constantly struggle with is if we're learning new things, how do you assess that? Of course, there's the magic 10% class participation grade that you have a lot of leeway as an instructor. And then, there are more uniform ways. There's midterms and finals and homework assignments. And then, of course, just if you blow it, it's pretty easy to give you a 0 or half credit, if you just don't pull through. But it's really tough to say, okay, well, Natalie on her zip codes, she gets an 89% on her data, and Andy gets an 87% on his. I mean, if they work hard and earnestly to be part of the group project and they're learning as they go along, they get full credit basically for that portion of it. But I will say, in evaluations, sometimes in this class and in my digital journalism class, there are students who ask for more structure, who want a formal rubric. But and you can do that with an inverted pyramid story or something like that. But like if we're learning Google Fusion tables and I'm learning along with my students, how do you say, no, that's 77% right there, So you just have to balance it with more traditional measures. So you have to balance structure with kind of.
Or you just grade them on attendance and let it go, right?
I mean, yeah, the learning along with the students is very challenging, but I don't think we have a choice in this field. I mean, I can't be an expert at something for 2 years and then finally teach it, because then it's too late. It's like the old stuff. One of the things I was thinking about as I was grading, and there were not a lot of little points, but it was like A, B, or C. And an A would be somebody who, if everybody performed at that level, the site would be way more awesome. If B was like if everybody performed at that level, the site would have probably been about as good as it turned out to be. And a C would be like, God, if everybody performed at that level, I'd be really sad right now, and we wouldn't have had a very good project. Or worse. I mean, I'm not saying I don't give D's or F's, but we didn't have any. They're grad students. I mean, they are doing work. It's just the level of work and the level of.
Of course, when you're working with a class like this, if somebody's doing C or D work, you're going to stop that 2 weeks in and say, all right, let's work on this and figure it out. And they're not going to be doing C or D work by the end.
Also, all these people up here are bar setters, and you have a few bar setters in your class, it brings the rest of the class up. So it's important. I'm going to have to figure out ways to try to cultivate the bar setters earlier on and figure out ways to motivate people that way. Jonathan, did you ever have a second go?
I did. I wanted to shift gears and ask a question about practicality. Now that you guys have done some of these data visualization projects, do you see them as more of a long-term thing to be used in the newsroom, or is it something that you could have a quick turnaround on, depending on what kind of data you're working with, obviously?
I think you can have both. I mean, Ryan could probably speak to this a little bit more in terms of how it works in an actual newsroom at the Texas Tribune. If you're expecting a data source on a regular basis, you can probably have some things ready to go. I do know that the people at the New York Times, though, do work on very long-term projects. They'll work on something for the Olympics or something for Oscars, and that may take some time. I was at the New York Times the day that Michael Jackson died, and I know they jumped into, very quick mode to be able to get a bunch of photo tools together so that users could submit their favorite photos or memories of Michael Jackson or something, and they did that in a few hours. Sure. So I think we're going to see that it's going to be a shorter time frame. Nobody has this luxury to be able to work on things for 8 weeks like we did, right? And we thought that was a short time frame, but it was a pretty big project to bite off.
But there's also small bites you can take. Like for instance, one of the students in my technology reporting class, we did the practice Google Fusion tables exercise, and her thing is fashion. I mean, actually SMU, we have half of our program now, we created a fashion media minor, and it's just been a very immensely popular minor, and we have a lot of students who are very interested in fashion. So there's Fashion Night Out, and she was the fashion editor of the Daily Campus, and so she put together an Excel spreadsheet of the 20 events that were going on. You know, there was a fashion show at Neiman Marcus, there was a fashion show at Stanley Korshak, and just, you know, what the event was, what the address was, and, you know, a little description of what the event was, and she just mapped it out and put it out there, you know, and it's really, I mean, if you've only got 20 data points, it's easy to clean up that data and put it out there, and then, you know, students had a searchable map of where to go for Fashion Night Out, you know, so it doesn't always have to be this immense, huge data set. I mean, it can just be small little.
Right, but it does certainly seem to lend itself to these much bigger, more complicated projects.
But not necessarily. I mean, I think you definitely have to focus and figure out what is your expertise and what you're going to be working on. Like, Ryan, when that university data came out last week, you guys turned that around pretty quickly, right?
Well, we updated one that we already had.
Right.
So that we already
right.
had this. But I mean, to kind of address your question, like it's not any different than when you're getting assigned a regular, you know, a typical story, having 2 days to do it versus a week to do it. You know, when you get experience to the point where you can make that call of, all right, I have this much time. This is what I can do well in this time frame.
Right.
So it's the same. I mean, the logic is not any different on it. You know, a lot of the things I do involve other reporters finding data sets and bringing them to me and saying, hey, I'm doing this story. I think this is a good data set that'll go with it. Can you help me make something that goes with this? Sometimes they give me a week in advance. Sometimes I get the afternoon. And I'm very clear in
Make
that.
it work.
And I'm doing other things too at the same time. And I'm very clear in that, all right, well, yes, I can help you. This is as far as I can get it in this time frame. You know, so it's part of getting experience and part of knowing your limits and knowing how much you can do in the time that you're given.
And the tools.
And sometimes we're not even. Sometimes in my case, they're bringing me the data and I'm not even publishing it online. I'm just helping them filter it and weed through it and basically answer the questions out of it. Mm-hmm. I do more work with the reporters finding the answers for the data than I do publishing it, you know, as an online visualization. You know, it depends on the service.
I found that working with the data sets was a lot like editing stories too. I mean, it was like, well, what's the story here? Does this make sense? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to do it a little bit differently? And it's a lot of like discussing, like, are we telling it the way we want to tell it here and working with the students?
That's my question,
Yeah.
or my statement. It really has to be organic to the story you want to tell. I mean, you just can't take a piece of data and kind of make, you know, some chicken soup out of it.
You brought that up earlier. You were asking what did you expect to find, and I think you or somebody was.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, like any scientific method, you're going to come up with some suppositions and you're going to test against them, and it's something that you have. It's just the questions that you're asking, and you're really formulating the questions to find out an answer, not the answer, or not the answer that you expected. You might be testing the answer that you expected. There's a set of causes of death, and we think that suicides will be high in this. But, you know, it's not that I want to find high suicide rates so I have a better story. It's just that's one of the aspects that we're going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start looking through it, you might find, you know, a different set. Usually, I'll sit down, I'll call through the data, I'll send the reporter a report, and then they'll look at it and they'll have more questions. And they'll come back and they'll, well, what about this? And that's to me, that's the fun part, you know.
Sounds like you're more asking what, to use grad speak, research questions rather than hypotheses. You know, what is the what is the blah 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 as opposed to I think we're going to find this.
Yes.
I would actually echo that as well. That was part of the balancing the data as we were looking at it. You know, we had these like mounds and mounds of data that was just there for us to do with. So if we went in with too narrow a question, it was like, well, I don't really see what the story is here. So part of I found the joy of it was talking with, you know, I remember, and since I was talking with Shannon, we were kind of talking about the different patterns with the employments. Like, okay, when we know healthcare is one of the top employment industries here in Central Texas, so what does the school here have in terms of faculty? And we were able to find those kind of little delightful surprises in the data because we went in with an open mind. We had the context of the bigger, broader picture, but we had kind of like you said, the research question. We were able to find the little surprises in the data that became interesting stories.
Brian, did you have a question before? Or did it get answered? Okay. Anybody one more? Okay.
So Cindy and Jake, what are you doing for the fall?
what am I doing for the fall? It's the summer. My brain is totally fried, so I'm not even thinking about the fall. But I'm teaching summer school in July. I am going to try to take this class and make an undergraduate version of it, and maybe even make it a complete data journalism class that we would offer at the graduate level. I would want to continue using this advanced class as like an advanced platform. I am teaching 2 versions of my regular web design class, the undergrad and the grad, in the fall. And so we'll do the same thing again in the spring, maybe not this exact same project. But every time I've taught this advanced class, we've kind of pushed it forward, both with the South by Southwest project and the things that we do in the second part of the semester. Sometimes they're group projects, sometimes they're individual projects. I really kind of like this one big newsroom project idea. It's difficult, but I think we end up getting better quality work out of that. What are you doing?
I'm not teaching again until January. I am on a research sabbatical to work on a book project, which is liberating in the sense that I'm not going to have to teach for 6 months, but it's also incredibly pressure-inducing, and that I better have a book manuscript done by December. But the book is taking a look at the changing relationship between news providers and their audiences. And one really big portion of that is going to be looking at interactive data and mapping, and how that is really changing the relationship that news organizations have with their audience to deliver them information. And so I'm going to be spending some time at the Texas Tribune. I'm going to Seattle next month to my former paper, the Seattle Times, the Christian Science Monitor in Boston, Las Vegas Sun in Las Vegas. So I'm definitely still going to be immersed in it, but I'm actually not going to be teaching it till the spring. But in the spring, I'm really excited. I'm going to be teaching an entrepreneurial journalism class that you know will incorporate some data, but basically it's going to try to teach the students in the class how to create their own jobs or to be entrepreneurial within larger news organizations.
Yeah, one of my goals is to continue to push our program forward in terms of the idea of programming and data. And the biggest impediment to that is my ability to learn it. And so I just have to keep pushing myself and keep learning new things all the time. JC Young, right here next to you, is on our faculty, and she was a great hire for us. She taught a class on content management systems last semester on Drupal and WordPress, and which you guys took it. You guys took that class. So you know, we really are able to continue to add more and more of these higher level programming languages, higher level technical skills. And I just think that that's a really important direction for journalism and mass comm, or really any like humanities or information-oriented degree to move in, because there's certain types of students who go into computer science, but many disciplines need to use the results of technology. Many different types of careers need to use that, and so we just need to continue to enhance those skills at that level. I'm also really interested in the fact that I have a lot of female students. You know, most of the panel here is female, and computer science doesn't get a lot of female students. It's actually decreasing, and so we have this opportunity in our discipline where we have mostly female students to get them more of the technology skills. So entrepreneurship is one class that I'm thinking about, the data journalism class is another, and then JC and I want to work on a mobile development class. So these are the wish list of things we want to add to our program in the near future. Is there anything else before we go? So I just want to say that these students work very hard, and I'm very proud of the work they did. I'm very proud that they stayed with me.
Joe just graduated.
Yes.
So we're looking forward.
And Ashley, well, you're
August.
finishing in August. Okay.
Okay.
So I heard Joe's buying. Where are we going?
When he gets a job. So thank you all so much for paying attention to this. The website is txstateofchange.com if you want to kind of dig into some of the multimedia a little bit further, and I appreciate it. Do we have anything for the next time? We're working on
We'll
anything?
have a next time.
We will have sometime around the end of June.
Huzzah.
Something.
Somewhere in June.
If you have any ideas, let us know.
Somewhere.
And I think there are tacos left. If anybody.
We'll bring them in June.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
Take tacos home with you.
Thanks for coming.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to meet you in person.